So today we're going to talk about algebraic expressions. So there's a bunch of little pieces within an expression that we do need to talk about. So the first things first is, what are variables, constants, terms, and coefficients? So a variable is essentially a symbol which we usually in mathematics write as a letter to represent some unknown value, unknown quantity, whatever. So a prime example of a variable that we use usually is x's and y's. X's and y's usually denote something that's unknown and something that we're trying to find. A constant is a number that does not have a variable attached to it by multiplication. So a constant is just a normal number. So like 3, 5, 8, something like that. Basically, a constant is a number that does not change depending on what a variable is because it doesn't have a variable attached to it. A term is a grouping of variables and constants, but they're tied together by multiplication. A coefficient is a number out in front of a variable in a term. All right, so some examples of variables, constants, terms, and coefficients are something like these. So some variables could be, let's say, x, y, a squared. You could have some Greek letters in there, y squared, something like that. It's letters that represent unknown quantities. That's all variables are. All right. Also, some variables that you'll see in Newton would be r, p, q, something like that. Okay. Now, constants are just plain old numbers that do not have variables attached to them. So some examples of constants could be 3, 5. You could also see some as pi, e, which is Euler's number, Euler's constant, -2, 1/2, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So those are just examples of constants or things that don't have variables attached to them. A term is a variable and a constant tied together with multiplication. So an example could be 3x, 5q, 8r squared, let's say 10xy squared, stuff like that. So you have numbers attached to letters. That's what we mean by a term. That's what a grouping of variables and constants are by multiplication. Because this is 3 times x, 5 times q, 8 times r squared, 10 times x times y squared, and so on and so forth. Now, a coefficient is basically using the terms that we just wrote, but a coefficient is just a number out in front of the letters. So a coefficient could be, let's say, in the term 3x, the coefficient would be just 3. Okay? In 5q, the coefficient would just be 5. Okay, so the coefficients are just the numbers out in front of the terms. So to look at some examples real quick, what if we have this expression here? Let me scroll up real quick. 0.7x plus 0.2y plus 8. And we're asked to find the constants, the coefficients, and the variables. So the coefficients of this expression would be 0.7, because that's the number out in front of the x value. 0.2, because that's the number out in front of the y value. And that's it. Okay? We don't have any other numbers that are attached to letters. And that's all we got. For constants are just the numbers that don't have letters attached to them. So in this particular expression, the constant would be 8. And the variables are just the letters that we see in this expression. So the variables in this part, or in this problem, would be x and y. And that's it. All right. So moving on to the next problem, The next problem is asking us to do the same exact thing, but just a little bit different expression. So hit pause real quick. Let's see what you guys come up with. Okay, so for the coefficients are the numbers out in front of the letters. But wait a second, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Okay, the reason why I'm saying that is because I can actually combine like terms. I can make this expression a little bit smaller and simpler to deal with. The reason why I'm saying that, I can add this 1, this 3, and this 8 together. Now, of course, we're going to get into simplifying algebraic expressions in a little bit, but for this problem, if I take 1 plus 3 plus 8, I get 12. And then everything else comes on down for the ride. Plus 4x minus 6y squared minus 4x to the third. So now, my coefficients are the numbers that are attached to the letters. So my coefficients would be 4, -6, and -4. My constants would be the numbers that don't have letters attached to them. So my constants in this expression would be 12. The variables, the only variables that I see, or the letters that we see, are x, y squared, and x to the third. And that's all. So usually whenever you can simplify your algebraic expression, it makes it easier to deal with, less stuff you have to worry about. So in the next video, we're going to talk about simplifying algebraic expressions. So as always, if you have any questions, please let me know.